Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bonsai Wire podcast. A little unfamiliar voice here. This is Nathan Bill with the Bonsai Society of Greater St. Louis. I'm here with a few of my compatriots in the club. We're going to talk a bit about the convention that we're hosting coming up in May of 2024. I'm also here with Jesse Gilbertson.
Hey everybody, I'm Jesse Gilbertson here talking about Bonsai Central. So we have a lot to talk about today. We're excited to be talking with Jonas. We're also here with our good friend.
Hi, this is Tim Hutson. So I'll be chiming in and seeing what I can contribute as well.
Thanks. And so the reason we're all chatting today is I've been talking with the St. Louis crew for more than a year now about a big event that's coming up called Bonsai Central that's going to be held in spring of 2024. And it's a pretty exciting event for a lot of reasons, which made us think to kind of hear the backstory about what led to the creation of the event, as well as what the plans are for the event. Does that sound fair?
It sounds good.
So who do we blame for this whole thing? Like, whose idea was this crazy event?
Well, it's kind of a long story, actually. You guys probably remember this little global pandemic we had a few years ago. Kind of edging out of that, I think, now. But this actually started as a plan to continue a convention system that we were doing, that we initiated with ABS in 2018. We had a very successful convention that year. A lot of people were talking about it. There was a lot of hype. And here in the Midwest, some of those conventions can be a little snoozy. So it was just nice to have a fantastic convention. A lot of people remembered it. And so I think we had scheduled with MABA for 2020 or 2021 to have another joint convention. And that just got canceled and pushed and canceled and pushed. And yeah, our club leadership changed quite a bit over the years. Our club never really missed a single meeting. We jumped on Zoom right away. We have a great club here in St. Louis, but we decided we wanted to go ahead and pursue that avenue. And so we're doing everything in-house. And with great leadership from Nathan and Tim, we decided we would go ahead and move forward and try to do this on our own.
I actually attended that 2018 convention, and for the life of me, I have no idea who talked me into that.
Yeah, someone must have strong-armed you to coming all across the country, even with some stuff. You worked some workshops even on that. So I'm not really sure how you managed to get all that all the way across the country, but we certainly appreciate it. And your workshops were some of the favorites. So I still have some of the trees from that, and we're looking forward to doing something similar with this one, maybe a one step up from the last time we did it in 2018. And we got a lot of exciting things coming down the line for it. So we're really thrilled to talk about it and tell some people about what we have going on.
One of the first things that stood out to me about the event is that the venue is kind of impossibly perfect for something like a bonsai conference. You'll be at the Gateway in Collinsville?
Yeah, we'll be at the Gateway Center in Collinsville. Many people that have been to any of our conventions in the past, we had two Shohin conventions, late 2000s, early 2010s, and they were pretty well attended. And it is really a fantastic venue for it. It's just a little ways out of the city, about 10-15-minute drive from downtown. Just pretty ideal for all of our needs.
Yeah, we have the venue being a convention hall. I think actually works really well for what we're doing in that we have a lot of space. Comparing it to some of the other conventions, we have an abundance of space. We also have a nice climate controlled environment, lots of breakout rooms to have the different meetings and lectures in there as well too, as well as having our dinners and things right there. So, and we have tons of parking. It's also going to be very easy for vendors and exhibitors to bring their trees and wares in to set up. We have a ideal setup for that as well too, and just being familiar with it from the past, it works really well. So I think it's going to be a great venue. And when we were there last time in 2018, I did take your workshop, Jonas. I remember talking to you quite a bit at that time, and I was just digging up some of the not root over rock, exposed root, and working on those recently. So I certainly
Nice.
still have 3 or 4 trees that I either did in the workshop or shortly after being inspired by your workshop at that point. So yeah, I think as one of these guys over here said, I think it's going to be a step up. I say probably a couple steps up from what we did there. So anyone who's familiar with it or heard good things about it, I think that we're going all out this time to really make sure it's exceptional.
Yeah, I remember I met a lot of good friends at that event. It was just one of the more friendly, relaxed vibes of any big bonsai event in the country. And I know my favorite things about the venue just has ample space and it's an attractive spot. So it is a convention center. And so it's kind of what you'd expect from a convention center. But I remember the big giant glassy windows kind of outside of where the workshops were down that wing of the building were actually really attractive. But best of all was the fact that all the hotels were just walkable. They were right there. And so afterwards it was really easy to hang out with everybody because no one was very far away. We were all just staying in the same spot, and that's harder and harder to find at events, whether the national show or the expo, to have lodging right on site like that.
Yeah, as you can imagine, every convention has its own uh, peculiarities, I guess is the best way to put it, and its own challenges that come with that. And our convention center is no different. We've got plenty of space for vendors and trees and things like that. We plan to fill the space as much as we can. We also have plenty of space for workshops to be separate from all that, so we don't have to worry about moving things, et cetera, et cetera. But areas like the rotundra that you're talking about with all those windows and some of the breakout rooms, we're trying to do our best to schedule some programming so that we can make full use of that space while still
Nice.
providing those areas that you were talking about for people to get together and kind of hang out and do some. So in some ways it's has kind of opposite problems that maybe are challenges, I should say, not problems, that something like the expo might have had, where you were trying to figure out, how can we fit the most action into the space that we're allotted. And we're kind of figuring out, we have all this space, how can we make use of the best of this space? So it's been a fun, challenging project to work on, and we hope that we have something that everybody's going to in the community is going to really enjoy.
I'll be really curious what you come up with. We haven't talked a whole lot about it yet, but we are looking at alternative venues for the expo right now. And size is the number one reason for that, is we don't have the ability to grow. And so we're looking at much bigger spaces. And as you get really large, you start thinking, how are we going to take advantage of those square feet over there? Or what could we do in that other space off to the side there? And so I'll be curious if you do come up with some creative uses to fill those odds and then extra bit of square footage that you've got at the venue.
Yeah, we've been trying to kind of come up with different ideas for that. I mean, we can talk about our artists, but we have plethora of awesome headline artists. So it's using some of those spaces to make sure that those people have more opportunities to interact with the participants of that. So whether they're different kind of breakout little mini demos or lectures or things like that are just kind of free for people to jump in and be able to interact with these artists when they're not doing the workshops or the main headline demos and those kind of things as well too. So that's kind of one of the reasons why we have such a I think great list of headliners here. Is with that space we're able to utilize them in so many different ways. But that's kind of one of the creative challenges as well too, is how do we have the space to utilize those artists. How do we do that to make sure that there's all these different ways to interact with the artists and get that face time and educational opportunity from them?
So why don't you run through the list? Who are the headliners?
All right. Well, we do have a number of really great headliners. And before I really get into that, one thing I do want to say is, we are excited because of the space. As Tim was saying, we can get pretty creative with how we utilize the the artists as well. So we're going to have a lot of different interactive sort of situations with the artists doing mini pop-up demos. Some of the workshops are actually not necessarily traditional workshops, but they're just quick little bring your own tree. You get a 10-minute sort of critique with the artist. You get a lot of face time with the artist. And so we have an amazing lineup, starting with Bjorn Bjornholm. We just spent some time with Bjorn up in Chicago, got to chat with him quite a bit. It was before his big announcement that he was going to be moving back to Japan. And kudos to that guy for not spilling the beans, because I think it was about 2 days later he spread the news. But so we were very excited. It's probably going to be his last event here in the US as a, while he's still living here anyway.
Yeah, I did confirm that with him at Nationals. I mentioned that I think the week before he's at another show, but our show is going to be the last one he does before he, kind of finishes up moving over to Japan.
So we're pretty excited about that. He's worked with a lot of artists here in St. Louis. We have a great relationship with him, and we're glad we can host him for a last time. And then our other, we want to say homegrown, just because we've all become really great friends with him. Tyler Sherrod, who leads a study group here with a number of us in St. Louis, and we've developed a really great relationship with Tyler. We've got Andrew Robson. Sorry, Andrew. We're actually quite good friends. Andrew grew up here in St. Louis and joined the club with us. Was in the study group with us with Michael Hagedorn, and so we're really happy that Andrew is going to come, and we're going to try to twist Jeff's arm to come as well, his father.
Yeah.
Nice.
So when we had that show in 2018 that we've been talking about, Jeff was the president. Andrew's father, Jeff Robson, was president at that time, and we did
Of the St. Louis club.
Yeah, of the St. Louis club. So he was very involved in that, and I know I talked to him recently. So I think we're gonna. I know someone has to take care of the trees back at home, but we're gonna twist his arm to make sure he can make it too.
And
Nice.
then and then next up we have a couple of Europeans. We have Mauro Stemberger coming. He also does a lot of work here in the Midwest and actually throughout the country. So we're excited to have him back. He's worked with a number of us in St. Louis as well. And then one we're really excited about, we're still working on some of the logistics with her, is Maria Hadjic, which will be her first time here in the US as a bonsai professional. So we're excited to get all that finalized with her. And then everybody's favorite, we have Young Choi coming in. She's going to be doing a number of Kusamono workshops, and we're just really excited. So I think the lineup is pretty fantastic, and that really just is getting into the main headliners. We have a number of peripheral people, a number of vendors, so we're pretty excited about all of that.
How did you come up with this slate? I'm thinking one frame for this whole discussion is kind of how to put on a bonsai convention, and we've thought through a lot of these same things when working on the expo. How did you decide? What is your list going to be, and who are you going to talk to first in terms of who to invite?
Yeah, sorry. I wanted to go a little bit on that just because I think now's a good time to just say, here in the Midwest, we don't have as much opportunity to see a lot of the professionals. Many of the professionals are on the coasts, and in the Midwest, a lot of our cities are spread out. And so I think we decided, really as a club and as a board, we needed to go big. We were very successful with our ABS convention in 2018, and we did have a couple of artists for that. But we were also coupled with ABS and their following and their marketing. So we decided, if we're going to go on our own, we may as well just kind of, let's go big. Let's get people to come out. One or two artists is a draw, but we have a number of artists that are all have different fields of focus. And I think that's kind of really why we wanted to do it.
And I'll jump in here a bit about it. As I've been mentioning, every convention is a little bit different. Anytime you do something like this, the way we run it is certainly different than Nationals and the Expo and all that, the way we have it designed. And one of the reasons for that is because we surveyed our membership and we, talked amongst ourselves as the board, and we tried to come up with a ranked list of what were the most important things to get out of a convention in St. Louis. And I don't remember all the things on the list, but there were things like, making money from the convention and having good workshops and et cetera, et cetera. And far and away, the number one that always came out on top was just bringing a, top class bonsai experience, regardless of if we broke even or lost a little money or whatever. Everyone's main focus in our club was to provide that experience. And so that was our permission, I guess, to go out and go big on this and try to provide a lot of prize money to get as many great submissions of trees as we could get, and to go out and get several artists that now we sometimes worry that we won't be able to fill all their time for all 3 days, but we have a lot of great helpers that have been working on scheduling and all the other stuff that goes along with it to fill out that lineup and keep things moving. So
yeah, one thing that a lot of people might not know is that often when you're running a convention and bringing in not only a small number of great talent, but as in your case, a big number of really fantastic people, often it involves finding them other work in the area. And that's totally invisible from the convention goer's perspective. Were you able to bring people in just for the event, or are a lot of these people coming to town as part of larger trips to the region?
I think it's a little bit of both. We have relationships with some of these artists, working with different club members and area people in the area with Morrow and Tyler. Tyler, especially, he's actually in town now working with some of our club members, and he comes up regularly. Andrew, I think it's part of, with him being a kind of a homegrown talent here, and this being his where he grew up, it was natural to kind of reach out to him, and I'm sure he's going to be working with some of us, or at least enjoying kind of a homecoming as it is for him. And I know we have a relationship with Bjorn. I'm sure Bjorn at this point is more focused on moving around that time, so we probably won't have as much of that. And Maria was very much a challenge as far as kind of nailing her down and coming, especially as we're having most of these talks during COVID as well too, getting people to come in. Yeah, and I think just to go off of that, I think Morrow does have a lot of work in Chicago around that time as well too, and throughout the Midwest. I think when he comes in for this, my understanding is it kind of hits a lot of his regular clients there as well too. So making sure that these trips for the Europeans there especially is worthwhile for them. It's been a challenge, not a challenge, but it's been I don't know, enjoyable to do.
It's a little bit of coordination.
Yeah, and it definitely is, and I'll kind of just go off of what Nathan said. I think one of the aspects of this that is different, as Nathan hit on, was when we were proposing this and doing this, and it's essentially the board members of our club here talking about what our goals are. Like Nathan mentioned, really, we looked at this as, okay, the 2018 convention was successful monetarily, and that's great. It gave us kind of some money in the bank to do this. But then with COVID, not having opportunities to go and see shows, interact with artists, do all those things. And also another thing is we around that time, 2018 or so, we also we had a local bonsai nursery that Cass Bonsai, and they closed up and retired and moved away too. So there was kind of a little bit of this void between allowing our club members or giving them the opportunities to experience bonsai at a different level. And as you know, during COVID, there was so much new interest. So we have all these new people in the club who haven't had the opportunities to interact with artists, to see high quality trees, do those kind of things. So providing somewhere in the Midwest with an event that is of the quality that we're striving for is first and foremost a benefit to our club, and we look at it as that. We're not, again, trying to make a profit as a primary motivator. We looked at this as, okay, even if we lose money, that's okay. This is what the club is designed for. This is what our money is spent on, to give our members this kind of experience. But if we do make it profitable, it makes it easier to justify doing this as a repeated event as well too.
Have you put much thought into doing this on an ongoing basis?
Right now, we're just trying to make it through the first one, as I'm sure that you can.
Oh, I can relate.
Yeah, you can relate from holding the expo, that while you're in the middle of all the planning and the headaches and the million to-do list, that things on your to-do list that you have, it's really hard to think about doing it again in any length of time. But we have talked briefly about it. We've talked about it potentially evolving a bit over the years. This might be the first iteration of it. We've talked about making some changes over time to potentially bring in some other aspects that we're interested in. So it is something we've talked about, but it's hard to commit to that right away. From the very beginning, though, since we decided this is more an experience thing for our members and everyone else in the Midwest area, we've kind of been going with the theme of bringing the best to the Midwest. And that's sort of what we're trying to do. We feel like that the coast are frequently serviced by a lot of professionals and shows and things like that. It's where the highest concentration of trees likely reside. And then at times, the Midwest can be passed over, as they sometimes call it, flyover country. But we wanted to kind of confront that and take it on and see if we could get really high quality artists and workshops and vendors all to come to the St. Louis area, which is just about in the middle of the country, to hold a show. And depending on the success of this show, we will discuss what we're going to do in the future with it. But there's certainly a lot of ideas that we've formulated about what type of show it could be in the future, even if we weren't able to take those steps right now.
Yeah, I know when we were building the expo, the idea was not to build a show, but to build a system that could put on shows. And because we knew that'd be the only way to be able to do more than one. And so we were always thinking, it's less about, well, what do we do to scrape something together for this one time? And it's more like, if we were to be doing this on an ongoing basis, what is a volunteer platform, a backdrop, website, or whatever it happened to be? We always were thinking, how do we make this some kind of a system that could support itself over time? I'm not going to say we succeeded on any of those, but we definitely were thinking about it. And when I think of the energy and effort that's gone into your event already, it's kind of staggering. I mean, you have a beautiful functional website. The scope of your event is so much bigger than what we did, because you're bringing in top tier talent from all over the world. And then you're running this giant workshop program on top of that. I mean, this is a giant bunch of work. And like you say, when you're partnered with ABS, you had some support in terms of registration and some, automatic people that typically go to those kinds of events. And this time you're doing it all de novo, from scratch, on your own. And so that gives you a lot more flexibility, but it means you have a lot more pressure to get all those things right. I'm sure none of this is lost on any of you.
No, but we appreciate that other people recognize the amount of work that goes into it, from time to time, as you definitely know, because, we feel like that we take a lot of inspiration from what you did with the expo and the way that you have developed the bonsai community over your career working with bonsai. But it sometimes is hard being the one that's pushing forward to make some large event like this happen, and it ends up taking time away from your own trees and things like that. You sometimes struggle to get the correct amount of watering in, even for the day, not to mention wiring or repotting or whatever else you have to do with them. So it's certainly difficult to find the time, especially when we all have different jobs. But our board has been pretty amazing with all the work. Christian Onkin's been doing our website. He's been doing a fantastic job with it. Mike Vasic has been working on all the scheduling for setting up who's doing what, when, and what's going on all over the place. Rosemary's been tackling all the financial side of stuff and making sure that Tim, Jesse, and I aren't just spending all of our money without anything left in the bank. And Ruth's been handling all the hospitality things and stuff like that. We've got a whole lot of people who've been helping out with workshop material. It's stationed 3 or 4 places across the city to keep it all going. But one of the questions I did have for you during this podcast was, if you could tell us and talk a little bit about your volunteer system, because it's one thing to do all the planning work. We can kind of contain that within the board, but then with the boots on the ground effort, which is going to start coming up in the next few months, I'm sure you had to have a small army of people to help out on that side with the expo.
Yeah, the one of the challenges is most of the big events you've heard of have a built-in army of people that can help make it happen. Bill has just awesome support for the national show from his local club and from his Monday senior crew. He's just got fantastic support baked right in. When clubs host events, you just expect all of the members of that club to chip in. And for a lot of one-off events, there tend to be just a built-in group of, whether it's customers or members, that can help make something happen. That's where these events come from. We didn't have that. And from early on, that was one of the things that scared at least me the most, was that I just thought, is anyone going to want to help with this? Because it's kind of a big ask. And in short, we did get, around 100-something people to volunteer, which was absolutely fantastic. And that's why the event happened, is because we got all that support. But what's interesting is we sold out a couple weeks before the event, and we still had open volunteer spots. So despite hearing people express their disappointment over not being able to buy tickets, they still wouldn't sign up for a single security slot, which would have got them free admission to the event. It's hard to get volunteers. And I know for me, one of the big things that stands out about your event is every single thing you said about bonsai in the Midwest, or between the coasts more broadly. It's so true. I've been to lots of events at various places, and it is unbelievable how far the average person drives to go to a bonsai event all over the Midwest, whether you're in Ohio, Missouri, Michigan, or Tennessee. It's just kind of a given that you're going to spend half a day to a day in the car, and it won't even occur to you to complain about it, because that's just what anyone in that community has to do to attend an event. And so by being the tent pole, by being the thing that can kind of hold together that community by putting on a big event, I really applaud that, because I think that you'll get a ton of support from that whole area. Now, will they drive a full day to volunteer for security shifts? I guess that's the bigger question. But thankfully, you've got a huge and supportive club to help make some of those basic needs happen.
Yeah, as Nathan was saying, we do have a pretty amazing club, so much support on our board, but then within the ranks of the club as well. And, the 3 of us are some of the younger members of the club as is. Over the last decade, one of our goals as a club was to bring in younger membership, more women, and we've seen a lot of that. In fact, our club has been, as a 50-year-old organization, has been very successful, and we're pretty fortunate as a club. I want to kind of talk about that now, if you guys don't mind. But we actually every year have a big bonsai show that is viewed by over 40,000 people, for one of the largest, I think it actually is the largest Japanese heritage festivals in the country, at our botanical garden. And so we constantly have an influx of new volunteers or new membership that is seeing our trees on display, seeing our club booth, where we can vend at the event. And so we are always pulling in new membership, and there's always a diamond in the rough every year or so. We get those diehard hardcore members that really catch the bug. And I think the best example of that would be Jeff Robson and Andrew Robson, and then all of us. But we've actually formed a pretty core group of people that just got interested through that. But because of that, we've just had a very involved membership base even throughout the COVID years. And so I have no doubt that we're going to be able to pull this off really well with our own club volunteers.
Yeah, you'd ask about the system we used. We actually had one of our core kind of organizers from the Santa Cruz Club, Helen Clay, came up with this software she's used a lot called Sign Up Genius. And it's just this wonderful free software we use to allow volunteers to sign up. And that pretty much saved our butts because it allowed people to go online, sign up for spots. And that's how we were able to kind of coordinate a really distributed group of people. And we had volunteers actually from all over the country. We had people flying in from across the coast and from Hawaii to volunteer. And, we didn't know any of these people ahead of time. And the software just made it really easy for them to sign up. And
we're familiar with that software. We use it as a club as well. So
oh, nice.
That is a really nice one, Sign Up Genius.
Hopefully we can get somebody coming in from Hawaii to help out.
Yeah.
Man, I owe Robin big time. He was one of the volunteers that worked as hard as anyone there. And so hats off to you, Robin, if you're listening.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, I will say it's nice to see some of the registrations come in already, and for attendance, and seeing those come from states all over the country and outside of the country as well too already. So
we already have 10 different states represented in the registrations that have signed up.
That's awesome.
And we're looking forward to hitting many more along the way as the event gets a little bit closer.
Okay,
yeah,
let's
so
talk about. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say we're already starting to see some of that, buy-in and involvement, excitement coming from bonsai communities across the country and in Canada. So it's great to see that. And even I was talking to someone who might come back from Australia to come to that event as well too. So it's exciting to do that and see that excitement.
Yeah, and actually, we shamelessly plugged this event. We were already doing it when we came to Bonsai Central and
Expo.
The Bonsai Expo, the Pacific Expo last year, and I ran into somebody I'm familiar with who I know has shown at the National, and cornered him in the lobby and mentioned it and was like, hey, you have to bring in a tree for the show. And so we are actively reaching out. We want this exhibition to be top notch for the Midwest. So we're actively reaching out. We know of trees we want to see in the show, as you've probably did with the expo. So we're asking artists to submit as soon as they can. But we are actually seeking out specific trees as well, because we want the best represented that we can get.
You're drawing from such a giant area. There's actually a fantastic amount of really top tier trees that you don't always get to see together, just because there are only so many magnets to pull in trees from, more than half a day's drive away. So I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what you all come up with. Have you had much success on the open calls yet, or are you still getting the word out on the open calls for submissions?
We're still getting the word out, of course. We're trying a little bit different way of accepting trees. Instead of making a hard deadline, we're going to do a rolling acceptance where, it benefits to get the trees in early. It helps us to be able to plan where we're going to put everything, but it also, helps the people submitting trees to be able to know whether their tree is going to be in the event or not. So we're on January 1st, whatever submissions we have, we're going to go through them and we're going to tell the people whose trees we accept that they're in the show. And then we'll continue doing that until we run out of slots that are in the show. But we know of probably 20 to 30 trees that are definitely going to be in the show or are going to come. And we're can't wait to get more submissions from the community. I know that these guys have been talking to all their friends and hitting up things like the national show and the Chicago's annual show to try to talk to people who have trees, and I know that they're gonna end up coming, and it's gonna be a great show, and probably will end up running into the age-old problem of having too many trees and figuring out where to put them, which is why we're trying that rolling system, so that as we get to X number of trees, we can say, well, we better start reeling it back a bit, dialing it in, seeing if the 3 people that we know of that haven't submitted them yet can get their trees in. So we're really lucky that we have a lot of connections, not only in the area, but across the Midwest and beyond. As Jesse, I think, mentioned, we all work closely with Tyler, and he works closely with a large group in Atlanta, and I know they're bringing at least 10 something trees.
Nice.
So through our connections, we've got a lot of irons in the fire, let's say, on the tree side of things.
Let's also mention the prize money specifically for Best in Show is quite high, and that really is to encourage that high quality. We're offering $2,500 for top prize, so it's a pretty big deal for us to shell that out, and we're excited to do it because we know it's going to up the level of what people want to show and the kind of work they want to put into what they're going to show. So we've been spoiled these last number of years being able to see the national exhibition and the Pacific Expo, and we want to be able to make sure we're bringing high quality trees to the Midwest that people can see and be inspired by, because we certainly have them.
And the other thing is, it's a little bit different time of year than some of those other shows. You know, it's in May,
Yeah.
so a lot of trees that might not be looking their tip top best at the August, November timeframe may look great in May. So it provides a different seasonal opportunity to show Kusamono or trees that are just coming into their growing season and things like that around here. So
Yeah, you'll get some beautiful foliage and some color as well, probably.
exactly. Yeah.
Do you have a set idea about how many trees will be in the exhibit, or will that depend on, or are you going to try to maintain a certain level of quality and let the quality level of submissions kind of determine the size of the event?
Yeah, I think the emphasis is going to be on quality. We've had this discussion. I'm sure you guys had similar discussions as you were planning the expo as well too. We're not limited for space, so it's size, but we also don't feel obligated to, fill up with trees. I think more of the emphasis will be on making sure that this is a top quality exhibition and really being inspired by the Pacific Expo, being inspired by nationals. And we're striving for that kind of quality of submissions and trying to set the bar high there. So, we are looking for that, but then also we are, and I don't want to neglect this point here too, is that we're going to be accepting Kusamono and Suwaseki as well too. So both of those will be shown as well. Now those are a little bit smaller niche communities, but reaching out to people in that community or anyone who's listening, that's an emphasis of what we're doing as well too, and that will be part of the prize pool and featured in our exhibition as well too. So that's kind of another added dimension of it is, yeah, the high quality trees. But I know personally I've been kind of reaching out to some different people who have those super high quality stones and are looking to kind of really display really great Suwaseki in the way that Nationals does, and Kusamono in the way that it has been done before as well too. So I know Young Cho is really happy to help us on that regard, and to hear that we want to feature that in the event as well. But yeah, I think just in general we're gonna be shooting for a high bar for quality, and quantity is not as important of a factor.
Are you all the core group that's determining which trees get into this show?
Yes, and a select member of board members initially, and then if we really hit an overload, we are tapping our artists coming in as far as if we really need to make some hard choices. So I think we're on the right trail with that, and then with what Tim mentioned with Kusamono and Suwaseki, and then everything else as far as quality. I mean, we really want people to want to come to this, to want to make that long drive, to want to fly. So that's really the goal. We want people to come, and I guess this is a good place where we can just talk about our vendor list, because that for me, most conventions I go to, I want to see vendors. I want to go and buy some stuff. So so we're working pretty hard to make this into a marketplace as well, where people can come and expect to buy high quality trees, starter material, pots, stands, a little bit of everything. So, I think it's pretty exciting to
Yeah, these are
really be
not small
working.
lists of people you're putting together.
Oh no.
You've got April, Vicky, now, and Byron just on the pots, like just as a starter. Like that's a really nice selection of containers there, pretty much as good as you'll find anywhere in the country.
Yeah, and you can add to that list now Waldo Street. And I was
Awesome.
waiting to hear back from Roy um, Minari as well too. He contacted me about being interested as well. So I think we're like, just as a example, our potters there are top notch. But we currently have around 25 different vendors that are confirmed. Most of them are on the website. Um, and then we're just building from there. We have a lot of other interest, and I know I talked to you about this, Jonas, and it's kind of to me, since I'm in charge of vending, my biggest challenge has been kind of making sure that we have a well-rounded accompaniment of vendors that kind of can provide a range of things, whether it's trees, pots, accompaniments like suiseki or stands, different levels of trees, pots that are imported from Japan versus the American artists as well too. Really providing that well-rounded without overdoing any one particular category. And that's been a challenge for me, and something I continue to kind of work on in trying to make sure that we're providing not just plenty of vendors and high quality vendors, but a well-rounded group of different wares for people to buy.
And it looks like you've done a great job of that because you do have a stand maker, you do have tools, you have Satsuki, you've got a whole bunch of different people with trees. And so that's very real. It's funny. We ran the most Spartan event you can imagine. It's pretty much a show and a place to shop. And if you don't have the shopping, no one's going to go to the show for the most part. And so you've got the entertainment and the education on top of that. But I think you're off to an awesome start with the vendor list you've got already.
Yeah, from the very beginning, we were super set on having a great list of vendors, and Tim's been taking that on pretty much by himself, and he's done a fantastic job with it, getting commitments from people halfway across the country, which we're really happy about. But as you know, Jonas, it's always difficult deciding, do we add another potter? Do we add another tree person? Do we add more tools? What are people going to be interested in? What would they like to purchase? And there's also now the added factor of, where are these people coming from? Are they going to be able to take a big tree home? Are they going to be able to get a pot back to their house and things like that? So we're trying to be very cognizant of both the people that are coming to the show and what they're going to be interested in taking away, but also, providing that service to the local area where we are going to have a lot of people driving to the show, maybe from hours away, but they should be able to get the trees back that they purchased at the show.
Yeah, we were thinking of it in the same kind of fashion where we wanted to bring in vendors that don't normally vend in the area. So for all of the local people, they would have access to new wares. And then same thing for the people coming out of town. We wanted to make sure they had access to people that they don't see on the national circuit, since we have a lot of the same people at those events as well. And so you're right. It's an interesting balance act. And as you sign on some people, you can kind of build out from there. But it feels good to provide a curator vendor experience, and mostly the vendors just want to participate and support the event. And so it's nice as we've got a strong, and recently it seems really growing, vendor community across the US.
Yeah, it really is incredible. And so I think, one thing we've been encouraging our club members is funny. Every beginning of every club meeting, we're like, hey, sock away a little cash every week or every month or whatever you can, because this is coming and this is your opportunity. I mean, to find some really high quality stuff. So everybody out there listening too, start socking it away, because we're going to have some amazing artists here. We're gonna have amazing vendors. And then I think, really we're gonna have some amazing trees too in our workshops. And I think, that's one thing about this convention that's a little different than, let's say, the national or the expo is in the Midwest, there's still kind of that expectation of not necessarily education. We always want to provide that, but there's been a kind of a traditional role that the convention plays as far as education, where it's an opportunity to work with an artist and get some decent material or work on decent material. So, we've been working hard on that too. And so, I think we're really on the right track to put on a pretty amazing event.
Well, talk about that a little more, because you all have been actually putting in a ton of work trying to get the material for this. That's got to be one of the biggest challenges of the whole event. Finding people to say yes to headliner an event and doing the logistics, that's work, but at least it seems doable. Finding and hunting down trees and people to take care of those trees and make sure they're healthy, that's hard. There's no gimme wherever you are in the country for doing that. And so how did you all tackle that?
That's when we talk about this potentially being a recurring event, that's probably the biggest sticking point, is how we would bring along and develop that material on a recurring basis, every 2-3 years, whatever we decided on doing the convention for. And so, a lot of this material is sort of legacy material that the club has had around for some time. Some of it we sourced recently, and we kind of just got lucky that we happened upon growers who had some really nice material. But sourcing material is hard. You got to always keep your eyes open. Jesse's the best at it among us sitting here, and among probably almost anyone that I know. So we are very fortunate we have Jesse with us he's very good about networking, making connections, but he also has that fantastic eye for this. Might not look the best right now, but if I make a few cutbacks here and there and grow it out for a year, this will be perfect workshop material. So he's done the bulk of that for us.
Yeah. It's a bit of a challenge, and space being kind of the top part of it. But we started, as I mentioned, planning this convention years ago. And I think I bought a block of ginkgos from a local grower, I don't know, probably in 2019. And quickly realized, okay, well, these can't sit in these pots. They went into Anderson Flats, they got cut back, they got repotted a third time. And suddenly we have, some very high quality material. And, it's possible, it's doable to do it in-house. But it is a lot of work. It's a lot of investment. I have a lot of fun doing it. But yeah, the space, the overwintering, how are we gonna, make sure we're keeping this block alive, especially if we're gonna put it live on a website to sell it, as a workshop. And so, we've spread a lot of material out between us and some of the other board members and good growers in the club that we know can sit on material and do the right cutbacks and fertilization. But I think, sourcing it the year of is just not the way to do it. I think you really have to have the foresight and planning. And so as we look at how we would, maybe evolve this in the future, it's like, okay, well, maybe we do continue offering really high quality workshops, maybe a few less of them, but yeah, we got to get on that material sourcing now. And so that's the one thing that's been in the back of our mind, and we've been having conversations about it, but we really want to see how this goes. So I think
we did just buy a block of like 600 trees too. So
yeah, I don't know where that's going to go.
Right.
This guy, he agreed to overwinter it for one more year, but we have paid for it. So
Wow. What kind of beech is that you have for the workshop? Do you know which species of beech that is?
I don't remember the specific cultivar name. It's sand something or sand.
Yeah, that was sourced by one of our local nurseries who actually, goes on buying trips every year. And one of our club members spotted the material. And so he went ahead and went back to his source and bought some more in. Let me look and see. That was
that's cool.
Outside of my sourcing.
While they're looking that up, I'm just going to chime in here too, just to give Jesse especially some kudos for what he's done to organize the material for all these workshops. Here it is. It looks like Sandrone European Beach. So a specific. How does that spell?
Road. Sand
Road.
Road.
So,
It's from Uselli or Isley.
Oh, okay.
yeah, so it's amazing what goes into that. That is logistically probably one of the hardest things to do. And Jesse, you've been in bonsai how long now?
I guess going on 24, 25 years
Yeah.
since college.
So he's an old man here, but no, I'm just kidding. He started since he was young, but he in that time has a lot of connections with different people, and he's been able to uh, call in favors and talk to people. And this is, locating the material that we're using goes back pre-COVID. So as you heard him talking about, we've been sitting on a lot of this stuff for, oh, is this going to be club workshop stuff? Is it going to be, what do we end up doing with this? The club has it. And then, a lot of it, well, this makes perfect workshop for the convention, but we have already been thinking about what are we going to do in another couple of years if we decide to have this again. So it's a mix of, calling in favors, always being on the lookout for it. We have, again, like this local nursery that goes on buying trips, and it's great that the owners of the nursery are bonsai people, and although that's not their primary business, they can kind of help us source that. We have relationships with these artists that help us do that. It's really pulling from everything that you can. I mean, it's to the point that I'm looking at some of the material that I've been growing up for 7, 8 years as potentially a lot for if we do this again. And then, we'll do collecting trips as well too. So it's like, okay, well, between you and me and this other club member, are we willing to kind of use some of the stuff that we've collected and make that into a workshop? So we have, that's a huge logistic challenge, and we're calling in a lot of favors, and I think we have excellent material for this this upcoming event. And then we're already thinking about future ones in case we move forward with that as well too.
And fortunately, the board's been pretty good with me too about me just buying stuff and asking for forgiveness later.
Well, that's kind of what it takes, because you never know when you're gonna, stumble upon an opportunity to source some of that material.
It really is. I mean, even buying your own individual trees. I mean, I've learned the hard way. Like if you hem and haw on something that's a good thing, you're probably gonna miss out. So, we're actively looking all the time, and fortunately, we're actively looking for our own internal club education. So a lot of that stuff, I mean, we're offering high quality stuff to our own club for some of these events or for some of our in-house workshops. And I think one of the big things on growing stuff out for the convention and in-house too, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is, holy cow, we got to get this out of that soil. And so, you can imagine, if you're looking at programming for next year, well, you probably should have potted that last year, and so a lot of times we're running into, okay, we've got this material, we need soil, let's get this potted, and we're gonna have to grow it another year, and this goes in next year's rotation. So fortunately, we've been doing that enough that we can provide some of that material for this convention.
Yeah, and you've had kind of support from, I know St. Louis has had a steady study group with various professionals for a lot of years now, and so it's probably second nature to know kind of what it takes to get a tree onto the cycle, to get it to the point where it can be a productive workshop tree.
Correct. Yeah. We've had a steady stream of people. We have 8 to 9 people that almost continually have a study group that meets several times a year. In our sensei has changed over the years, but it's always been someone that we highly value their artistic work, and we don't take that choice lightly of who we bring in to work on our trees. So
now, when was the Kimura convention in St. Louis?
That would have been, would
Is
that
that
have
like
been,
early 2000s?
that would have been the BCI-ABS
Yes,
joint convention. I think it was 2004.
that
And
sounds right.
that was actually the first convention I ever got to see. I just attended it as I just got to view the trees on display. I
It was a
was,
good show.
oh gosh, it was
I actually
amazing to
flew
see
out
that.
to prep trees for that show.
Well, as a young practitioner just getting into it, it really showed me kind of the level. I mean, some of the stuff back then you saw in books felt like they were unattainable, even some of the stuff online. But when you see it in person and when you see vendors that have amazing material, you start realizing, okay, this is within reach. There are people that are doing this here in town.
Yeah.
And so that was a big deal for me. And I hope, Bonsai Central is that for the next generation.
Well, that's what made me think of it is the trees were very different back then. There were a lot more imported trees from Japan. And this year I would expect far more homegrown bonsai to be in the event. It's funny, my two big takeaways from the Kimura convention were, yes, it was a fantastic club, big, strong, good club, and surprising how many members are still in it to this day. And my other big takeaway was steak and shake. I think those were the two big takeaways from the event.
That's funny. You're speaking of imported trees. That was one of the things we went back and forth with about this convention is we were thinking about, maybe doing something you want to call it gimmicky or just like a theme to the convention. So we're thinking about just having, North American natives or some sort of focus on quote unquote native species. After listening to your podcast, who was that with, Dylan or somebody, where you guys talked about natives. I didn't think of all those good points that you guys brought up in that one about, it really just depends on what little microclimate you live in on what is native. I loved your definition about sharing a political boundary. But there is definitely a push towards moving away from imported stuff and more towards things that we've grown here for many, many years. And now that the club's been around for 50 years and we have trees that have been passed down, a longtime member of ours who's getting a little bit older and not able to take care of a lot of his trees has donated a lot of trees for the convention and for our club auction and things like that. So we're excited to sort of pass those on and showcase those to other people. And it's fun to see how it evolves from year to year to year as we see different iterations of the same art form.
No, it's really neat to watch that unfold over the years, to have that kind of history. And it's really not the years as much as it's the years plus people doing it at a high level and doing it really actively. And you're one of a small number of communities around the country that has been putting in the effort, decade after decade. Are you going to be doing any tie-in events or encouraging people to visit the gardens when they're in town for the event?
We'll have a number of things listed on the website as far as some of the local sightseeing stuff. It's interesting the way the convention is set up. We have so much going on. We really want people to be there and feel like they can participate at any time. So, there's going to be pop-up demos and all kinds of lectures and stuff going on. The vendor hall, of course, as well as the workshops. But we want our artists out, shaking hands, rubbing elbows with people, and just being in the mix of it all. And I think, so there's a lot going on in-house. As we look further out, we certainly have some ideas. And we're still kind of working on how that would work logistically as far as getting people to the botanical garden, which actually has, I think, North America's largest Japanese garden, Seiwa-en, which is a pretty incredible garden if you haven't visited it, because it really encompasses a lot of different aspects of Japanese garden design. So it's really worth seeing. Probably one of the biggest drawbacks and one of the things we're going to try to address as as the three of us, but also other board members and people that are interested, is there is no public display of bonsai here in St. Louis. And I think that is going to be kind of a focus of the club and other interested parties as we move forward into the upcoming decades, because there's a lot of fantastic trees, and we want to make sure people are seeing this and we're carrying this on in our community. We have a very strong club for the Midwest, and I feel like we need that legacy. So, it's a little off topic, but for some, it's on my mind all the time, and something I wanted to.
Yeah,
bring
Jess is
up.
talking about the huge Japanese garden they have there. They even have some permanent collection bonsai trees there. Just nobody gets to ever see them because they don't have a space to display them. So anybody from Mobot, if you're listening to this, I doubt it, but hit us up. We'll figure out a way to get a permanent display there because we'd love to have it.
Yeah, I don't know how well known your botanical garden is outside of the area, but it truly is mind-bogglingly big and beautiful. It's just one of the largest areas. I just remember everything was so clean and curated to within an inch of its life. It's just you turn another corner and look over a little hillside, and it's like, oh, look, more water features and more perfection and no weeds anywhere. And here's another one and another one. It just kind of keeps going and going. It's such an awesome opportunity to get people interacting with the garden.
It is amazing. It was founded in like 1859. It is one of the oldest botanical gardens in the country. So, I mean, it is pretty incredible. And I worked there for a number of years, and we would go overseas and see like Kew Gardens or some of these other botanical gardens and nitpick all the weeds and hoses left out and stuff. You don't see that at this garden. This garden is really well done. So, I highly recommend people do visit it when they're in town. And certainly we have a number of other offerings. I mean, St. Louis is one of the premier beer cities. So, if you like beer, there's breweries everywhere. There's fun nightlife. There's all kinds of stuff going on in St. Louis. So
yeah, the architecture buffs can go to the Wainwright building and see one of the world's first skyscrapers, or what counted as a skyscraper based on the way it was put together. You can see the amazing Eads Bridge, the world's first steel bridge over the river. There's just a lot of really fun things to do being at the gateway to the West.
Yeah, we're gonna have to hang out, Jonas. You know a lot more than we could go on and on with this podcast, sharing some of those.
It's funny. My first trip to St. Louis, I'm just fascinated by the river and all the history that goes along with it, and to know how many cool things are going on right there. There's a reason that St. Louis is where it is, and there's a lot of investment that's gone into it for, like you say, the last 170 years, which makes it a pretty fantastic spot, which again, not everyone would know if they're just zipping overhead to go to the national show or whatever else the event might be. But yeah, I always go out of my way to run through downtown to see the garden whenever I get a chance. And I've even seen an opera in St. Louis when I was in town. The timing ended up just right, which was kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said about the city. We could go on and on about it, but I think it offers a lot of opportunities for people visiting for the bonsai show. It's a very straight shot from where the convention center is to the downtown area. And, Jesse already mentioned breweries. There's the big AB brewery on one end of Soulard, bunch of really cool bars and nightclubs down on that. That's kind of like the river landing area. That's cobblestone streets from where they used to bring in all the barges and stuff and river boats. Now it's kind of a really happening nightlife, and that extends all the way north until the Arch, which just got redone, has a beautiful kind of museum there, and now a national park on its own. And then, so it's of course, there's the sporting aspect of the city as well too.
It's May. Baseball season will be on.
Right.
Yeah.
Baseball season.
Yep.
And there's a few new places that have opened up. A place called the Foundry and the Armory, which are kind of open. Similar to I don't remember the name of the place that you recommended everybody go to near the expo. That was, there's a bunch of different food places, and you kind of eat in a central area. Right. Yeah. The Foundry is a lot like that. So, it's pretty close to the venue. And then the Armory is kind of a similar style, but it's like yard game type things in a big old
Oh, fun.
armory building. So it's a cool little experience as well to be in. So there's a lot of fun places to hang out around the city. If you don't just spend all 3 days at the convention, which we're probably going to end up doing, but
And you can go up in the arch and you could probably spot the convention center if you
Ooh,
look out
yeah.
the right window.
Yeah, I think probably would.
Yeah, if you brave the little gondola going up in there, it's pretty awesome.
That thing is incredible. If you've never done that,
It's an experience.
you feel like you're probably being launched into outer space. It was designed in the 60s. It's incredible.
Yeah, they basically send you up there in a wheelbarrow.
It is much smaller than you expect, and it takes longer.
It's not for people who are claustrophobic, I would
Claustrophobic,
say. Yeah.
or don't like relying on herky-jerky enclosed contraptions. Yeah.
Yeah, just hope the person next to you showered.
yeah.
Yeah. Speaking
Close
of,
quarters.
well, what's the number one thing people can do to support the event right now? I know that registration is open. I know that
Get those
workshop
in.
signups are open, and you're still looking for entries. So tell us, what's the rundown of things that people can do right now to support the event?
Well, the best thing I can tell people is to go to our website. It's bonsai-central.com. So www.bonsai-central.com. Everything that we've been talking about is pretty much on the website. You can see a lot of pictures of the workshop material if you click under that tab. And then right now we're really making a push to get as many entries into the show as possible. Trees, Kusamono, Suiseki, whatever you have, all of those should be entered. All we need is a few pictures and some contact info. And we have an email account set up just for that. The email is submissions, submissions at bonsai-central.com.
Awesome.
Yes. So I think that's the push right now. So I think if especially after just being at the Nationals myself, everyone was looking forward to that, doing that, and a lot of high quality trees there. So talking to different exhibitors there, the next phase is for those people, look at your trees, see what you want to submit, and submit. And we're really looking forward to building that high quality exhibition right now. So that's probably the big one thing, is look through your garden, see what you might have ready for May, what looks good in May, what you want to submit for that. So start planning, and then when you're ready, make those submissions.
Yeah, winter is coming, and so there's going to be a couple of months for many of us where you're not really looking at your tree at eye level or in a place where you feel like it's worth showing. So look at them now, make those plans. We really want to make sure we're getting those submissions in as quickly as you can.
Yeah, you reminded me of something there, Tim. That might be a good note to end on. You mentioned me at the national show, and I'm curious, knowing that you're knee deep or maybe neck deep into planning this event, did you have any takeaways from the national, things you do want to do or don't want to do, or things that came to mind? And I guess I could go for all of you who are at the expo.
Well, there's one thing real quick. Tim was getting ready to grab the mic, but I wanted to mention it. I'm working with a gentleman who's actually a good friend of mine, works with the St. Louis Art Museum, and he's very interested in helping us with a catalog. I feel like for me and for a number of people, having a tree in a book or on display with a little write up on how it was developed or what your thinking was in the design is a big deal. Your catalog for the Pacific Expo is incredible, and I feel like that's something we're really going to try to do. So we're in initial talks, really trying to figure out logistics of that, but this guy's very excited to take it on, which I was kind of like, I really thought it needed to happen. I definitely was not excited to try to take it on. So I'm glad we're having somebody who actually is not in the bonsai world necessarily, who actually this is his world, is design. And so he's looking at how we're going to do that. So that's one thing I wanted to just say about that my takeaway from both the expo and the national. I think it's a big deal to have those publications out there so we can remember, we can see, but also we can see the progress of these trees, because a number of the trees that are on display here will have been shown before in other contexts, whether it's one of those two shows. And it would be just amazing to be able to share in that.
Yeah, and I think that that kind of that's important and just kind of highlights the fact that we've been sitting here talking for I don't know how long, and there's so many facets to this that we could talk about. And I almost completely forgot about mentioning that. Yeah, we're going to put a great book together that is highlighting all the exhibited trees, Suiseki Kusamono as well too. I know that's a big factor for a lot of people for wanting to participate, and I think just an awesome way that in America we've had the nationals commemorating each of the shows with that book, and now with the expo doing that and us doing that, I'm hoping that it just gives us more opportunities to see these progressions, see American bonsai, and really get that long-term catalog. And that's just another thing that amongst all this time talking, that's another factor that we didn't bring up, and I'm sure there's other things we're forgetting. But yeah, just really excited. And yeah, I've gone with the Pacific Bonsai Expo and Nationals, both in fairly recent memories. There's definitely some takeaways from that. I will say probably the biggest thing from Pacific Bonsai Expo, my takeaway was the quality of trees. There wasn't the quantity of trees that you'll see at other shows necessarily, but every single one was of the highest caliber. And that's where, when we talked earlier about quality over quantity, I think we were all kind of a little inspired by what you did with the expo and how that turned out, and how every tree you could just sit there and look at, and there wasn't something that you looked at that did not belong, and you're like, what is this doing here? That was probably a huge takeaway from that.
As a club, that can also be a double-edged sword, because at our annual show at the Japanese Festival or any other shows we put on, we try to do as inclusionary as possible, where we show trees that might not be quite at that quality level to something that we might see in the expo or the national show or Bonsai Central. And so the double-edged sword with us is, we'll be turning away some club trees that otherwise would get accepted and things like that. So it's a little bit of a tricky wicket, but we've all decided that that was super important to us to have the highest quality trees only, and much more important than letting someone down easy that their tree didn't make the show.
And I'll say
there's no easy way around that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll say specifically, since I'm in charge of vending, I made a lot of notes about vending areas on both of those and how to do that. One of the ways I definitely want to utilize space, and this is a small thing, but to me, it actually, I think it's quite important, is making sure the vendors have plenty of room and plenty of good aisle space, and how we arrange the vendors so that you don't have
don't put two people who are going to have big lines right next to each other, for example.
Yeah.
Chipped a pot now stand, and he's really sore about it. So.
I might be a little bit as someone bumped into me passing by on a narrow aisle as I was
bought all his pots.
I might have bought a few or so of Now's pots, but I was in line, and I don't think I was the only one, but I was constantly kind of like trying to shimmy with 3 pots in my hands, and on of the 11 pots I bought from him, one of them I had in hand as I was getting ready to go up and pay for it. In line, I got kind of bumped, and that bump led from one of the pots in one of my hands hitting another one and chipping the pot. That was a $400 pot. I bought it. I only thought that was fair. I was holding it, but it's one of those things where, man, that corner at Nationals was so busy. The one between Suthen and Now and April Grigsby.
That was an odd little eddy. They were all really tightly packed in there.
They were, and that one, the first couple hours of the opening was just crammed. So I'm definitely that's another aspect, is making sure that we have plenty of aisle space and people are at, we space those things. The most sought after kind of vendors try to space them out in ways that make that easy. So we have a lot of space. We have, vendor area that will be bigger than national. So we want to utilize that. And part of that will be just making sure that our aisles are wide and we utilize that space effectively. Also, with the way that we set up the trees, I like the way that you did it at Pacific Expo as well too, and making sure that you have adequate space for all the trees to show them to their best abilities. That's one of the benefits again about having this convention hall where we have lots of space. We can provide plenty of space for those trees to go, or Suiseki or Kusamono, where we're not just trying to cram a whole bunch next to each other. And so, yeah, there is a lot of inspiration between all of that. I will say, after being to nationals the last couple times, me personally, I'm looking forward to having air conditioned space for that as well too. I know nationals. I know Bill is looking at a new space for it as well too because of that as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of takeaways. I think all of us have been to a number of conventions, and it just helps us better inform us on how to do what we're doing here. And it's a learning progress for us as well too. Sure, if we continue to do this year after year or every few years, then we will we'll hone in on that and get better as we go as well.
And it's really good to share all of this because I know that folks listening will be able to have the same kind of takeaways. There are a lot of things that don't come to mind until you face them. Unless you're holding that pot, you're not going to think twice about how crowded that little corner of the room was, for instance.
So Jonas,
Yeah.
as we move on to things, and one of the things that I think about, and maybe is a good thing to discuss, since you do the expo and we're working on this Bonsai Central thing, is it seems within maybe the last decade, but certainly over the last couple decades, the community has exploded, and you can see that in many ways, both from the amount of interest that's coming in on a daily basis from different sources, but also, a while not so long ago, you were one of the few really well done blogs that were out there, and now everywhere I look, I see a new one that I hadn't even heard of, or a new YouTube channel that is making really high quality videos that before that moment were unbeknownst to me. So I guess moving towards the convention side of thing is, I want to get your opinion about how many high quality shows on a per annum basis do you think that the US could support now, and do you think that's would move upwards in the future? And just want to get your thoughts on that a little bit.
Well, I think it's really interesting when you look at the community as a whole and what kind of events it's looking to support. My biggest takeaway from having done a single show, at least according to this model, is that this show will continue to exist as long as there is support for it. And so unless a lot of people care a lot about, kind of sharing and enjoying high quality trees, the event will just disappear. Now, there could be another event that's similar or meets the needs of people, but I think there really could be any number of events. It's more about matching the event to the people. I agree. Bonsai has exploded in the last 10 years, or has been exploding, and interest is really high. And I think one of the biggest reasons for that is simply because we have more support in the community. There are more vendors, there are more professionals, there are more learning opportunities than there were. You remember, so 20 years ago, we didn't have half of the resources. There weren't bottomless videos we could do. There weren't online courses, and there weren't a ton of Japanese trained professionals all over the country, let alone Europeans flying in. And so that support has allowed things to blossom. I think the events are going to be a reflection of really what people like. And interestingly, I think the more that you are able to provide an example of what a great event could look like, I think the more there will be desire for that, more of that kind of event in the future. And I think that Bonsai Central might actually be evidence of that in itself. You're like, wow, the National is really cool. And oh, wow, now the West Coast has one. Hey, let's do this.
Yeah, that's a good point. Those were certainly, we have a long history of having some conventions in the area, but we really kind of broadened the horizons and started looking at it more of a national thing instead of a regional thing, due to those examples that you're mentioning. So it's good to hear that, you also agree that one doesn't necessarily dilute the other, and that, they're sort of different experiences, and it's kind of what the community desires or requires or needs that's kind of fueling the events themselves. So we're really excited to hold this convention and have everybody come out. We want it to be kind of like a meeting place as well, because as you mentioned, it's a little bit of a drive to get anywhere in the Midwest, really. And so it's really going to serve as a place where we can see all of our old friends and chat about tiny trees and pots and what we plan to do with them in the next 3 years before 2 years between when we get together again. So
it's the best. Yeah. The Midwest has long been kind of an open question for me because, we have kind of a locus. We have a place to go to in the national show, and we're trying to do something similar in the West. And so whether it's a moving thing or if possible a stationary thing where people just know, hey, it's this month, we know where to go, and you provide that, I think that's when things really start increasing. And the history of the national show, if you look through the history of the books, it's just really easy to see. It built slowly for the first number of events, and it built in quality really quickly in the more recent events. And I think that's what happens when you start providing that place for people to go. It's like, we know where to go shopping, we know where to show off our best work, and we know where to see the people we most want to see. And the reason I went to the National this year, I just went very last minute, just for 2 days really, was to pretty much just catch up with people. And I got to talk with Tim, and I got to talk with a whole lot of folks. It was fantastic. But that is kind of the main reason I wanted to go. I wanted to see some trees, see some people, and just enjoy what is to offer. And so I think the middle of the country needs something to address that needs. And I think Bonsai Central is an awesome step in that direction.
Well, we appreciate all those kind words, and we hope to throw on an event that everybody really enjoys.
Well, awesome. Anything else you have to add for folks today?
No, I don't think anybody's going to be disappointed. I just say, check out our website. Get in touch with us. Let us know any questions you have. We're just really excited to be putting this on. And we're still learning as we go too. Things are evolving and changing even as we think about it. And I know this conversation today really got our blood flowing on some of those things. And I'm already actually, like, not that I really want to do it myself, but thinking about what's going to happen 2 years from now. So we'll all have that conversation with some beers very soon.
Well, thank you so much, Jesse, Nathan, and Tim, for taking the time to chat today. This has been great.
Yeah, thank you, Jonas.
Thank you, Jonas. Nice chatting with you.
And thanks for all you do for the community, Jonas.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, you're very welcome. We'll catch up soon. Thanks.
The music on today's podcast was brought to you by the fine folks at Blue Dot Sessions. Check them out at www.sessions.blue.
Well, that was fantastic. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, are we still recording?
Oh, yeah, I can definitely turn that off.
No, it's fine. We're just